Wow. Hi, everybody. My name is Marla, and I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Marla.
I don't think there's any doubt who was talking tonight. When he came over and he put this down, I'm like, now everybody knows it's me that's going to speak. It's pretty obvious. I always stand. I would have stood up anyway, regardless of the microphone, for you, Ryan, as a newcomer, out of respect to you, and out of respect to those who went before me, my brothers and sisters in recovery, in sobriety, who have gone before me, some of them here and those that aren't here. The book says that our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. And I'll mix it up a little bit backwards. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my life is like now, because it's absolutely the most important part of my story. I got sober in September of 2007. So I've got about 2.5 years now. And if my voice sounds shaky, it's because I'm nervous. There's no getting around that, right? And that's that old part of me, that egotistical part of me that still wants everybody to like me. And so I get nervous when I do this. But having said that, I'm just going to set that aside. I also have, I must say, important people here in my life and in my recovery. Brothers in recovery who've set a path, who've walked a path before me that I really admire and respect. They're important people to me. And I have a child here. I think I'm probably, when you made that announcement, I'm the only person with a child here. She's 20, so she should be good, though. She should be fine. She's not. Her dad's got her.
Keep her close to you.
Yeah. I want to sit here, Reese. Anyway, so when she walked through the door, I'm like, wow, now I'm going to have to change my story, right? Tell the truth all the way, right? Kids always remember, right? Anyway, I'm 47 years old. I was born in San Diego, and a little bit about my childhood so that we can relate what I used to be like. So we can relate. My childhood was a lot of fun and at times confusing and sometimes painful. So there it is. So we can all relate to that. And right, really. And I could go into details about it, like we all could, sort of open up the treasure chest of my treasured tragedies, whoa. But I've kind of gotten past that, and I'll tell you why. Because I know that in this room, there are people who had childhoods that were much more painful than mine. And they're here with me. And I have a brother who's had the same job for 30 years, the same wife for a little bit longer than that. And he's not an alcoholic. And yet he had my life, right? He lived my life shoulder to shoulder with me. And so I have a feeling, and I began to get this feeling a long time ago, that it's not about that. I also know that there are people out there who had it better than I did, and they're right here too. So I really do believe that this had something to do with me being, from the get-go, restless and irritable and discontent. And that's what I was like. In a nutshell, that's what I was like. And that's the last reason, actually, that I don't trip too much on my childhood anymore is that as a result of surrendering to this program and working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've had a psychic shift in my life that I didn't even really realize. And the way I did realize that it had happened came kind of quickly. I was talking to my therapist. Now, other issues, right? So, yeah. So there's that going on. So, but anyway, she said to me, describe in one word what your childhood was like. And I kind of started laughing, and she said, why are you laughing? And I said, because the word that came to mind was not what it was, and I wanted to launch into the whole self-pitying, attention-seeking behavior of it was just really, but she said, well, what was the first word? And what was the first word that came to your mind? And I said, the first word that came to my mind was fun. And she said, then that's what it was. Then be that it was at least that in part. And the reason that I think that that's the reality for me now is, as I said, a result of working these steps. There's been some sort of internal or psychic shift that I never could have done alone, that I didn't do alone, that has literally caused me to see things differently from the inside out. And that is probably the most important thing about what I used to be like. Besides restless and irritable and discontent, which was sort of the low-grade chronic mode I worked in for as long as I can remember, I had a few other characteristics, one of which was when I felt those things, restless, irritable, discontent, PO'd, whatever it might be, I was looking out here for the cause of that at all times. It was you, as I point to my boyfriend back there, it was somebody else, right? And that was my get down. That's how I saw things, and as a result of that, I looked for the solutions out here too. I didn't look beyond what I thought I could manipulate or change. That means you, the situation. And that's changed for me. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the fact that I think I would describe myself, my childhood, it was fun. I grew up in San Diego, and I grew up on the beach. And everybody in my family loved me. And although I was hurt at times, I don't think anybody ever meant to hurt me. And I'm grateful for everything that I went through. It brought me to where I am, and that's how I see it. So enough about that. I would say that I did grow up. I said to my brother the other day, I was like, you know, when I was little, and he goes, you should say when I was younger because you're still little. So when I was younger, he's like, yeah, he still picks on me, and he's like 50 something. So it's just not right. Some stuff you can't ever outgrow. And I said, you know, when I was little, I was this size, I guess, by the time I was in high school or whatever, and but I didn't grow up inside. So these were the, in addition to that kind of low-grade and chronic restlessness and irritability and discontent feeling that I had, the characteristics that I came into my adulthood with did not serve me well in my disease. And I think that a sister in the program shared them with me, and when she shared them with me, it was like, bam, that's it. She just spoke to my heart, and I knew that these were the character defects or the twists and the turns that I started to take as a very young person. And they are a few specific ones, and they keep getting pointed out to me as I go along. But real clearly and early on, I realized that although I was an adult, I was still emotionally immature, right? And I was overly sensitive. And again, I just want to say these are things that in my experience, a lot of alcoholics, like when my sister said it to me, when my sister alcoholic said it to me, I was like, yeah, that was it. And I remember going up to her meeting, like, Judy, write those down for me. And I'm living them. And so she did. And again, emotional immaturity despite my age. And I had more instruction on how to drive a car than on how to live life, right? Like that was basically it. And overly sensitive, meaning, it was, we know this phrase, it's all about me, right? Like, in other words, as I look back there for approval on your faces, if you don't have, like, a positive look on your face, I'm tripping, right? Like, uh-oh, kind of rearrange this whole get down, be more funny, do whatever, okay? When, you know what? You know, you may have indigestion for all I know. I don't know why you have that look on your face. Like, it's, but for me, it's all about me, and I'm sure that, like, I'm not pleasing you or whatever it is. Conversely, if you're smiling, I'm, like, super confident, and it's just, like, so sick of myself. So, and that's not easy to be, right? Like, when you're just tripping like that wherever you go and on everybody, it's a big day. There's a lot of people in this room, right? So, I can promise you that. And then a third characteristic that I absolutely carried around that I came right up from my childhood with, brought it right into my disease, grandiosity, which means as I'm walking down the street, before you get 10 feet to me, I've already decided that you're prettier than I am, definitely don't want to hang out with you. The content of our relationship is going to subsist me talking about you behind your back. So, because I've decided where I size up next to you, right? Like that's my whole get down is like, where do I fit in? Where do I not fit in? How do I not fit in? Is more like it. Like never just a person amongst people. And, or conversely, like if I think I'm in some way better than you, like we're all about being friends, so I can rub that in. And isn't that horrible? It's truth though. It's the truth because what was underneath that was that I just didn't feel like an average person for some reason. I just didn't. And so I sought to make myself less fearful and I sought to make myself more secure by either placing you above me or below me in what we call grandiosity. And the last thing that, well, it wasn't the last thing, but these are the biggies for me, defiant individualism. Tragic, right, for alcoholics because we tend to be lonely people. Grandiose people, and so to always be doing it my way just made that worse. I was also, an angry person, and later in my disease, an angry person with violent tendencies. So, like, at my height, that's pretty tragic. And it never stopped me from being aggressive or hostile or violent. And, yeah, that got me into all kinds of trouble. And I brought those character defects, those kinds of twists and turns, right, from my childhood into my adulthood. And in the meantime, while I'm busy not growing up, but physically maturing, life's happening. And I'm acting the whole time like I got this thing, right? And never knowing how to figure out how I felt about what was going on around me. And so whatever it was I was feeling, I wasn't comfortable expressing it, and I didn't know how to express it. And those would be things like fear or hurt or sadness or worry. And so I just kind of stuffed those down and came up with that more hostile, defiantly individualistic thing like, you know, I quit. You can't fire me. I quit. Like I was like 5 with that attitude. So, and the way that it looked in my life was that probably one of the first examples was I dropped out of high school, and because of that feeling like I didn't fit in, right? But I'm not saying I don't fit in. I'm saying, what jerks? Like, socias, you know, like labeling everybody, and like, I'm out of here because I'm scared, and I'm uncomfortable, and I'm insecure, and that's not a good feeling 6 hours of the day. So I quit high school, and because I was so confident, right, that the problem was out here, I confidently went on to college because I knew it was going to be different there. And I quit that, like, as soon as that they needed me to be up at the crack of like 10 o'clock in the morning, and because I wasn't about that. And so now I've quit college or high school, and I've quit college, and I went on to do what I think a lot of alcoholics do. Well, it doesn't matter. I did it. I think a lot of women do it. I sought to define myself and to find an identity and to find some stability in a relationship with a man. And so I got married and had a child, not in that order. Know that. And because I don't do that either. Like the in order thing, the manageability thing, not my get down. And so I'm pregnant with a child, married, and here it comes, right? And I had drank a bit in high school. And when I say a bit, what I mean is I either did not drink or I drank until I was throwing up. And like binge drinking in high school and college was kind of how I did it. And but the man and the baby kept me sober for a while. It gave me a really clear external definition of what I should do. And that worked for a while. But if nothing changes, nothing changes. And the weird thing about it is wherever you go, there you are, right? So I was restless and irritable and discontent before you could shake a stick at it. And what do? I blame Edward, my husband. And so I quit that too. And now I've got this child, and I'm single. But again, knowing confidently that the problem was Edward, I remarry confidently. Still not getting it. And I remarry again and have another child. And it was, how odd is this? Like, Kenneth was just like Edward, I figured. So I left him too. And how tragic is that, right? Like, I'm not getting it. That's I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, before I go on too much farther, I have a couple little things. If you can't relate to my story much, there's a couple things that I always want to say. I am, by my own definition, a low-bottom alcoholic. And none of you, Ryan, you don't have to do what I did. Like, you don't have to have all your stuff in big old plastic bags behind the wall at Motel 6. You can reach out your hand and get help from a brother in this community whenever you want to. For me, one of the analogies that we hear is it's like riding an elevator, and you can just go down and down and down. And my mom always told me that I like rode it to the bottom floor and then stepped out with a shovel and just was like, go down, down, farther, 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 go down. And I'm the worst person on the planet, and going all the way. And no one has to do that. So I don't like my story to conversely like reassure people like, I didn't do that, so I'm cool. Like, you're probably not cool. If you're here, you probably don't have it. And, like one of these things, I came in on one of these things, and if it's the first time you've gotten one of these, maybe bad luck, maybe. And you can always go back out there, and as we say, let John Barleycorn be our best advocate, because it's probably not a coincidence. It wasn't for me. I had like 5 of those before I finally caved. And so if you can't relate to my low bottom kind of icky story, and I won't spend too much on it, but because it took so very much for me to ask for help. It took so very much to break my ego and to make me admit that I did not have this thing. I just want to say, if you can't relate to any of that, please don't let it make you feel like you got this thing, because whatever you can't relate to, I think you'll be able to relate to this. On page 18, it says, an illness of this sort, and we have come to believe it an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him, and no one is angry or hurt. All right, let's just admit it. Speaking of humility, okay. There we go. But not so with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all the things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all those whose lives touch the sufferers. And here's the part that I want you to hear, because if you can't relate to the details of my stories, we all have this. However it looks in detail in your life, this is what it looks like in a general way. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends, disgusted employers, warped lives for blameless children, sad wives, and sad parents. And anyone can increase the list from there. So what mine looked like was, I now have these 2 sons, and I'm drinking now pretty good because I'm PO'd and I'm hurt and I'm not able to say it, and I'm also an alcoholic, and I don't realize it. And what that looked like was that I would start drinking, and it kicked off a craving inside me at the very first drink that I could not control. And I just would chase it, and chase it, and chase it, and chase it. And I remember a girlfriend saying to me, "You don't need that much of that." And I was like, yeah. Like, I could tell early on there was something very different about the way I drank. I've had dozens of jobs, and I've quit dozens of jobs, literally, and I'm dragging these boys now with me while I do this, right? And I'm getting pretty good at sensing when I'm about to be fired, like I'm slick that way, right? So right when I'm about to be fired, I'm like, no, dummy, I'm going to quit. And so I'm doing stuff like that and dragging these kids, these 2 boys, through this. And still confident that the relationship problem is out here. I met my match, and this relationship worked. Well, that's not right now, is it? This relationship lasted because he drank like I did. And he was also a single parent, single father who had his children part-time. And that's what we did together. And we tried to navigate this with a total of 6 children. And yeah, I was telling Karen earlier that someone asked me, Jim's back there, someone asked me, is that your dad? Because I call him dad. And I'm like, no, we just don't know each other's names anymore. Like, with all the kids, it's like, I don't even know his name. It's just mom and dad. So we had all these kids, and he's at the tail end of a painful divorce, and things are getting out of control. Because neither one of us, let me just speak for myself, I had never slowed my roll to come to terms with anything that I had ever felt in my life, and I wasn't very good about expressing it. And I would guess that neither was he, and there we were in the middle of this together. And things were getting pretty bad. I wasn't able to parent the way that I should, and it was showing for my children. They were stressed, and they were worried, and they were scared, as were my partners. And in fact, in the middle of all of this chaos, Jim's oldest child, the oldest of our 6, Joshua, killed himself in our home. He was just about to turn 16 years old, and he was drunk when he did it, as were we. So we came home, and the police were there, and if you are a parent in this disease, or if you have a parent who is an alcoholic, it's a It's a blessing in the oddest way, because if you think that this is about love, you are mistaken. And if you think this is about whether you are a good enough parent, if you were just a better parent, if your parents just loved you more, they would stop drinking. If you were a better kid, they would stop drinking. If I was just a stronger person or a better person or something like that, that's how I found out that this was a disease, that as soon as I started drinking, it was on and cracking, and anything might go down. Because you would think that our response, that Jim and I might respond to that tragedy and the suffering now of our children by getting sober, right? And we did know that for 14 days. And then we were at it again. And so I know, in retrospect, that I'm a mom and a human being like anybody else. When my children were born, I bonded with them and I love them deeply. I have a child here tonight, and I think she knows that I love her deeply and respect her the utmost. And yet, it's a different deal. It's a different deal. And as an alcoholic, all I can do is not drink ever and chase this recovery thing with everything that I've got. And that's the best that I can do. Because I was still living in self-will when Joshua died, because we were all still the two of us were living in self-will when Joshua died. We did not want help. We did not think that, surely we were obviously not blameless at this point, but if anything, being ill-equipped to deal with those kinds of consequences, those kinds of feelings, we just ran harder, and it went farther. We were now homeless, and Joshua had died at home, and we left that night into a motel, went directly to a motel, and that's where we stayed for a number of years. Jimmy's children went to live with their mother, and I proceeded to take my two children right down the road with me and into the motels. And I was now homeless, except living in the hotels, right? And I'm unemployable now, right? And so for me, I turned to crime, and which is pretty funny looking at me now, I bet. But yep. And so I was ripping and running up here in Sonoma County, and that's really all you need to know about that. I've been in and out of jail a lot. And before I did get sober, I was on the run down in Marin County with a couple felony warrants. And when humility came to me, it was simply my time. And what that means, and I will tell you, the other thing I want to say really clearly is that AA is not a religious program, but this is a spiritual program. So my higher power, I call God, and I could not have made any of these transitions in my life without that relationship. And I really regret not telling you earlier that the other characteristic about me as a child, as a young person, was that I did not have any kind of a relationship with higher power. My higher power was when I didn't have a boyfriend, me, and when I did have a boyfriend, he was my higher power. And so that was not I didn't have a relationship with anything that could help me. And so where my disease ended up taking me was that I was beyond human aid. If a human being could have helped me, it would have happened, because my mom spent $60,000 trying to do it, or me stealing it from her, and the children certainly all begged us to stop. And so I knew I was beyond human aid, and I was on the run in Marin County with felony warrants, and I had kicked in the window of this condemned basement apartment that didn't have any utilities, and I dragged in the cleanest dirty mattress like we do, or like I did anyway, and I'm down there like living in it, and I'm at the end. I am at zero. I am spiritually bankrupt because I brought nothing into this disease with me but my chaos and my confusion, and it just got worse as I spiraled around my own weaknesses and character defects. And I created a bunch of wreckage, right? We've got a dead child that we still have not come to terms with. We've got warrants, we've got chaos, we've got insanity and unmanageability. And I created so many problems, I no longer stood a chance of solving them. My two children, a number of things came together to bring about my sobriety. This is the good part. My oldest son went to jail himself. And that was another moment for me where I said, now, I'm going to get sober because I'm going to go visit him. He did a flat year in county jail, and I never visited him one time because of the selfishness of my disease and my immaturity and sickness. And so he's got sober in jail and found recovery and a brotherhood outside in this program. And I'll tell you what that looks like. He comes back, right? Now he's back, and he's sober, and he's actually living a recovery program with healthy brothers and not a healthy family of origin, but a healthy AA family that's giving him love and support and fellowship. And he makes it crystal clear to me that while he loves me, there's this huge gap between us. And I feel it now. He's not in the motels anymore. He's sober. And his 17-year-old brother, who I'm still like schnookered, right? Like I've got him thinking like, it's all good. I got this thing. Don't worry about it. This is how everybody lives. And he gets enlightened too about what's going on. And so Matt, my oldest one, is gone, living on his own, expressing to me really clearly, I love you so much, Mom. If you ever want help, I'm here for you. But he's not coming around. So I feel that, right? And as that defined individualism and that oversensitivity, I'm like, I don't know who he thinks he is, right? So I'm like not thinking about it. I'm just angry about it. And then his younger brother leaves. He comes to me and he tells me, I love you. If you don't ever get sober, I understand that, but I'm never coming back unless you are sober. And I totally love you and respect you. Goodbye. And he leaves. So I'm alone down there in that basement apartment, and this is sinking in. The book says that we are crushed by a self-imposed crisis we can no longer avoid, and that's exactly what happened to me. And so one night, I've got my full glass right there on the dirty, nasty floor next to this dirty, nasty mattress, and it's ready for me there in the morning. And I go to bed, and I'm crying myself to sleep. And I remember the prayer. I prayed to a God that I did not know and was not familiar with, but the mustard seed of humility was there. I knew I brought nothing to the table. I knew I was at zero. And it sounded like this. I said, even if I am nothing more than trash, if everything I have ever touched has been ruined, wouldn't it be better as like roadkill at the side of the road if I was not here, if I was at least not burdening the people around me? And if so, may I have that? May I not do this anymore? That was September 24th, 2007. I've not been under the influence since that day. And I believe in my heart, I wish I could, to be honest with you, I don't understand it totally, except that I believe that I had this humility that was based on being absolutely exhausted of effort. I'd tried just doing it on weekends. I'd tried just trying it this way. I'm just going to drink out of a tall glass, just cans, nothing with bubbles, blah, 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 right? It's just, I'm burnt. And nothing I do will make it better. And everybody who loves me has tried, and it's over. And in fact, I had so exhausted my self-reliance that I didn't even think anything was going to come of that. And I believe in my heart somewhere that that's what changed everything for me. That when I came with that kind of humility, the door was opened for me. And it didn't help my ego, though, but like a week later, after this little detox period, I'm walking down the street all like with a head this big, like, yeah, now that I'm sober, I know exactly what to do. I got this thing, never going to drink again, yada, yada, yada. And I'm talking down to a friend of mine who still drinks. So stupid. And I'm like, Jade, what you need to do, and what I'm going to do now that I'm sober since I quit, so sick, I'm going to turn myself in to the Superior Court, and I'm going to present myself like some kind of a gift, like they're going to be just so stoked to see me because I've gotten myself together. And I, again, a mustard seed of willingness. I'm going to go. I told her I'm going to go on Monday, and it's Thursday, and we're walking down the street, and I'm going to turn myself in on Monday. That's what it's going to be like when all of a sudden, like, whoop, whoop, and I'm back in jail. Like, what the? I was like, I said Monday, like, so horrible. But that's what it was like. Again, right? Just the tiniest little bit of willingness. And God was just like, wham, I'm in there. Like, even open the door, and God's just, bam, here we are. We're going to do this thing. And I was given one of these. And I went to the person who had told me he loved me no matter what, and if I ever wanted help, he would help me. And this child who I had hurt so very badly and neglected and abandoned, as we had all of our children, I did go to him for help, because he was no longer a child. He was someone who had found a solution. And I knew it, because I knew what his life was like, and how he had a job, and he had the nifty little car, and he had the eye candy girlfriend, and he seemed really happy, and he had all these friends, and he had a home. So I knew it was working for Matthew. And I asked him what to do. He told me what to do, and I'll tell you what that is, because I'm doing it to this very day. He told me to get a sponsor, and he told me the way to do that was to look around the room, Mom, and look for a woman who has something that you want. Now, keep in mind, I'm still stupid, still stuck on stupid, even though I'm like teetering sober. So I'm sitting back in the rooms at San Rafael or in Sonoma, and I'm looking around, and I see Deborah, and she has a Prius, and I wanted that, so I asked her to be my sponsor. And that really is, like, I was really like, God, I love a Prius. And you know, what's funny about that is that I don't know if y'all know what it takes to even own a Prius, like, but it's no joke. And as it turns out, it's everything that I needed, you know, because what it takes is a smaller ego that says, I will suit up every morning and show up at a job that maybe I love and maybe I don't, but I will do it every day. And when I make a commitment, i.e. car payment, I will meet that commitment. And that was foreign to me. That was completely foreign to me. To suit up and show up and do something every day that I did not want to do was not my get down. I had no experience with it. Like I said, I had more training to drive a car than to live my life. And I got that training in here. And I got that training in no small part from my sponsor, who sat me down once a week. We still do that. I still go to her house. She never comes to me. I go to her out of respect for her life and her time frames. And I'm there every week, except this week. And yeah, it happens. It happened to me this week. I'm sitting, it's supposed to be at her house, and I'm sitting in a meeting when I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be at Deborah's. And yeah, I was like outside, like, I'm so sorry. But that's never happened to me before, and she was really good about it. But I would meet with Deborah, I still do every week, and we read this book. And she and I sit in chairs, knee to knee, and I tell her what's in my heart. And I told her all about Joshua. I told her all about Marisa, Matthew and Sandy, Cody and Charmaine, and the things that I felt like we had done. I just laid it out there, blew the snot bubbles, cried like a big baby, and made myself out to be like this horrible person. Plus, I laid all the criminal activity on the line to her, right? And she's got this Prius and this nice house and all this stuff, and her husband's in the program, and I'm just like, and I just wanted you to know that I promise I won't steal from you. And she's looking at me like... You know, like she just kind of like slides the tissue box over to me, and she's like, you know, I'm really not afraid of your disease, Marla, and yeah, you're fine. And but I just had this impression that I was the most horrible thing. Again, totally unique. Like I couldn't just be with Deborah because she would choose to help me as another suffering human being. It was like, I'm just this piece of crap that you just, you know, and I'm so sorry for it. And she's like, wow, okay, we're just going to keep helping you. And so, and we went through the steps, and all of those character defects that I told you about began to be replaced. Ryan, God bless you and keep you on this journey, man, because I don't know what your life looks like, but alcoholics are unlovely in their cups, man. And I began to have less and less of the character defects. They're still there, but it's less and less, and they're replaced one by one as I go through the steps, as I'd gone through the steps. With the spiritual principles, and they were honesty and acceptance. And if you look back at my life and the broken relationships and the hurt children and the children who, although it's not my fault, Joshua was a child of this disease, man. And we die. People die in and around this disease. And so much loss, so much tragedy, and all of that stuff being replaced with these principles that I can apply now. Remember I said I didn't know how to live? That I can apply now to every single problem in my life. Honesty and acceptance, hope, willingness, courage, action, the ability to be courageous when I'm fearful and to take action, integrity, willingness, humility. All of these things began to come into my life. Brotherhood and sisterhood. When I was living in the motels with all my stuff and all my kids, we'd be passing the bottle around, and in between hits on the bottle, we'd be like, all about respect and loyalty. Pfft. none of it, right? This is the first place in my life where I've gotten true respect and true loyalty, true brotherhood, true sisterhood, and justice, real justice, an opportunity to not just say I was sorry, which in my past meant shut up, but an opportunity for it to mean is there something I can do to level this playing field and to have the courage and the support to take action on those things, to face my children and Jim's children, and to be there for them in a way that we never have been for them before. I was able on my 8th step to approach my son's fathers and reunite them, apologize for taking them from their fathers, and facilitate reunification for my sons with their fathers, and step out of the way, stop denying their fathers that relationship. And a spiritual awakening in my life that has, to this very day, continued on a daily basis to save my life. And the opportunity to be of service to other people. Those are incredible things to trade in on the empty shell of a life that I had before. I have sponsees that I also meet with every week. I have service commitments at these meetings, and every single day I realize that this has never served me well, and so I work very hard. I chase this spiritual relationship very hard, trying to create a stronger connection between God consciousness in my heart, that feeling like, that's not right. Because the one up here that said, don't do that, never worked. It's like, don't do that, right? And so self-knowledge never worked for me, but this connection between a God consciousness and my mind is working for me today. In closing, I just want to read to you, we're always instructed to look for the similarities, and this is a great example. I was able to find a similarity between myself and a man who wrote long ago his story in our book. His story is called He Sold Himself Short, but he speaks for me in the final 2 paragraphs, where he says, "Where derision, contempt, and pity were once shown me, I now enjoy the respect of many people. Where once I had casual acquaintances, all of whom were fair-weather friends, I now have a host of friends who accept me for what I am. And over my AA years, I have made many real, honest, and sincere friendships that I will always cherish. I am rated only as a modestly successful person. My stock in material goods is still not great, but I have made a fortune in friendships, in courage, self-assurance, and an honest appraisal of my own abilities. Above all, I have gained the greatest thing accorded to any person, the love and understanding and forgiveness of a gracious God, who has lifted me from the alcoholic scrap heap to a position of trust, where I have been able to reap the rich rewards that come from showing a little love for other people and from serving them as I can. May God bless you and keep you all. Thank you for letting me share."